Dear learners, Assalamu alaikum. I hope that you are fine by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am also fine by the kindness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear learners, in my today's class, I came before you with a discussion on Robert Frost. Dear learners, in your textbook, in the unit Human Rights, there is a poem out by Robert Frost. Before starting the critical COVID-19 period in your classroom, I described about Robert Frost, and I also taught a poem by him, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. This poem was taught by me in your classroom, and before starting to teach the poem out, the critical COVID-19 period began. For this reason, we could not come in the class, and I could not teach you his poem out. Dear learners, maybe after a long period you forgot everything and you forgot about Robert Frost. For this reason, in my today's class, I came to discuss on Robert Frost again. Dear learners, Robert Frost is an American poet. Although he was an American poet, his poetry was initially published in England before it was published in America. Dear learners, Robert Frost is very well known for his depictions of the countryside of New England in his poetry, and we also see that Robert Frost was awarded Pulitzer Prize for Poetry and United States Poet Laureate. He was also awarded more prizes for writing poetry. Dear learners, the main feature of his poetry is complexity. Although the language, the words in his poetry are very simple, are colloquial. That means he used colloquial speeches in his poetry. For this reason, his poems are very easy to understand for a reader. Dear learners, this great poet was born on 26th March 1874 at San Francisco in California, USA, and he died on 29th January 1963. He was born on 26th March 1874 and he died on 29th January in the year 1963 at Boston in Massachusetts, United States of America. Dear learners, Robert Frost presented rural life of New England and social problems of New England in his poetry, and by presenting rural life, day-to-day life and social problems of the people in New England, he tried to develop a deep philosophy in his poetry. Dear learners, here I wrote some of his famous works, some poems I showed: Mending Wall, Route Not Taken, Out, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. These are famous poems of Robert Frost. He wrote more poems in his life. Dear learners, in his poetry, he wanted to give a message to the people of New England or to the people of America or here and there about rural life, and he also tried to inform a deep philosophy by presenting New England in his poetry. Dear learners, we also see that Robert Frost's father died in 1885 when Robert Frost was only 11 years old. His father died of tuberculosis, and his mother also died in the year 1900. She died of cancer, and in the year 1929 we also see that his sister died. In the year 1920 his sister was sent to a mental hospital, and there after 9 years his sister died. And we also see that in the year 1938 his wife died. She died of heart attack, and she had also breast cancer. Dear learners, Robert Frost had 6 children. Only 2 of them were alive, and other 4 children died early. That means they got premature death. And after knowing this, we can come to realize that the personal life of Robert Frost was plagued with distress, sorrows. Dear learners, Robert Frost is called a traditional poet, and he is called modern poet as well, because in his poetry Robert Frost tried to mix tradition with modernism. Dear learners, here I wanted to give you a brief history about Robert Frost. If you want to know details about him, you should search on Google and you can know about him from different other online sources. In my next class, I will be present with the poem Out Out. This poem, Out Out. I will come with this poem in my next class. Till then, Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.